The GameCube era was one of those time periods where Nintendo did some pretty odd things. Lots of their IPs just felt so different than they do now. Mario Sunshine is without a doubt a very strange Mario game that does things completely different than any other 3D Mario. Wario World is one of the wackiest 3D platformers ever. Star Fox was very gritty and serious. Kirby would have a racing game, and both of the mainline Zelda games were so polar opposite. Wind Waker with an extremely cartoony art style, and Twilight Princess with a more super hyper realistic one. But there's one game on the GameCube that always seemed to mesmerize me as a kid, and that was the original Luigi's Mansion. I'm so glad that the series continues today, but nothing quite reaches that level of creepiness that the first game had. With the recent remakes of Nintendo 64 games, it got me thinking about possible GameCube games that could also get the same treatment, and the first one that immediately comes to mind is Luigi's Mansion. In fact, Luigi's Mansion kind of fits in the same boat as the recent Star Fox and even Zelda Ocarina of Time remake announcements, because it also got remade already, once before on the 3DS. But as we can see clearly, that doesn't mean anything to Nintendo. Just because a game came out on the 3DS doesn't mean it can't come out again in the future on a home console, something like the Switch or even Switch 2 in this case. I am more excited for Luigi's Mansion 4 than the next guy, but I think in some point in time I would love, and I mean love, to see a proper Luigi's Mansion remake for home consoles. Now, why is it that I want this game brought back so badly? Again, of all things. Well, I will say Luigi's Mansion 3 is probably my favorite game in the series by far, and Luigi's Mansion 1 is still a close second though. But even though I do like Luigi's Mansion 3 the most, Luigi's Mansion 3 doesn't quite do some of the things that the first game does, and neither does 2. The first thing is, I never was a big fan of slamming ghosts to catch them compared to the reeling in like you're catching a fish from the first game. It always felt so satisfying to drag a ghost around the room and try to reel him in compared to just slamming him on the floor for some reason. But to be honest with you, it goes a lot deeper than just catching ghosts. Yeah, I'm talking about the atmosphere. Luigi's Mansion 1 has one of the creepiest, strangest atmospheres that I've ever experienced in a Nintendo game to date. I mean, everything about this game is so creepy. If you look at the modern games like 2 and 3, they kind of like to joke around a lot more. The ghosts are more goofy and playing around with Luigi with charming music, and it doesn't really give you a spooky vibe as much as it does just a fun adventure catching ghosts, where the first game truly put fear into me as a child. And no, it's not just a nostalgia thing. After going back and replaying this game, I feel like almost every year I still, to this day, almost 20 years later, get goosebumps or feel the hairs on my arms raise when I enter a certain room or watch a certain cutscene. It just has that certain feel to it. Now, I think one thing that a lot of us are hoping for with the Ocarina of Time remake, where it's not like the Star Fox one where they actually add some new content and make some changes, considering the fact that this game's already been remade once, it's time to actually add some things to it if they're going to do it again, and I think the same thing should be brought here, because Luigi's Mansion 1 is a relatively short game. I feel like there's some ways they can expand on it while also keeping that creepy nature. One thing they could do is slightly upgrade the ghost capturing, because as I do like reeling them in, it's a little oversimplified here. I really enjoyed the strobe bulb that's added in Dark Moon and 3, allowing you to have one big flash instead of trying to get your flashlight to hit and stay on the ghost, which was always kind of finicky to me. So being able to shoot that burst of light from your vacuum in the classic game would be a pretty cool idea. This one might be a bit controversial, but I think another way to really bring in that fear factor is to completely change how the camera works. Imagine if the camera actually now followed behind Luigi, which I actually kind of hope they do for Luigi's Mansion 4. I don't know exactly how this would work with managing 2 sticks and being able to move the camera each time. It might have to be a snap camera that's tied to one of the trigger buttons, but still, I think it would be so cool to explore this full mansion, being able to see all 4 walls of each room, including the one that's right in front of you that you could never seem to see unless there was a mirror on the back wall. Doing this would add so much more dimension to the mansion itself and make it feel almost entirely new, because you're able to see it from so many brand new angles now. Something else I would do here is revamp lots of the portrait ghosts. Some of them are still very silly to take out and don't really make a lot of sense. Take Shivers for example. Why do you just simply light his torch and he walks into this closet room and sit down on his torch and burns himself? It doesn't really make any sense, and I feel like they could actually flesh this out into a full-fledged boss battle with unique mechanics. Or Melody, where you simply bang on all the instruments and guess a super easy song that she's playing. I feel like they could do more with this, maybe even asking more questions with more songs on a quiz, or maybe just doing other things with the instruments in the room to tie into a cool musical boss battle. I think this could also be a unique way to expand and add more content into this game, by simply having the boss battles take you to new rooms. We've seen this happen with some of the major bosses in the game, like the Baby Chauncey that takes you to a giant crib, or Bogmire that has you fighting in a giant graveyard arena. Now imagine this being a thing for almost every portrait ghost in the entire game, which would greatly expand how this game works. Or maybe not only that, but they also warp you to a new part of the mansion, or a twisted part of the mansion that's in a different realm. Like Biff Atlas will warp the room into a giant gym that you have to do some type of puzzle before even taking him out in that area. Adding all this while keeping the game spooky and scary would be phenomenal. Because once again, this is the primary reason I want to see this game return, is the atmosphere. They have to keep the lightning flashes from the storm outside, the extremely dark hallways and rooms when you walk in, the lack of music in new rooms but just eerie sounds from the ghost that you're tracking down. This is the stuff that made Luigi's Mansion in my opinion, and without it, it's just another new game in the series, which is fine. Like I said, I still think Luigi's Mansion 3 is the best game in the series, but nothing compares to the atmosphere of the first game. Do you remember right after Boolossus when the lightning bolt hits the mansion and cuts off all the power for the entire place? That was such a cool concept, and it was really cool to have the entire mansion go dim again and ghosts spawn all over the place. They could really do this up in the remake though. Imagine with modern graphics, it's absolutely pitch black, and like I said, you have new camera angles where they are now able to see the entire room from all points of view, making it truly jump scares as these ghosts come out of pitch black. Also adding more significance to Luigi's flashlight than ever before. Just thinking about how this would look on Switch 2 is already giving me goosebumps, man. The future of Luigi's Mansion is exciting, but man, nothing did it quite like the original. I mean, it doesn't even feel like a Nintendo game at times. It's a lot darker and creepier in tone compared to anything I think we've ever gotten from Nintendo. And unfortunately, I don't see Nintendo going back to this style anytime soon. But I feel like the only way this could actually happen is if Nintendo did in fact decide to go back to the first game and remake it from the ground up. The only problem is it's a very short game. They'd have to find an excuse and a way to bring it back for modern prices. But I mean, they brought back Star Fox 64 again, so I don't really see that being a big issue since that game is extremely short. But I don't know, I really like this idea, and if you guys enjoy this idea as well and show some love, maybe I'll actually make a video showing what every single boss battle in the game could look like if it was remade today. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think of a remake of the first game. Is this something that you would like to see one day, or are you just patiently waiting for Luigi's Mansion 4 like me? Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you have a blessed rest of your day. See you guys.